Hello friends and enemies. Welcome back to Happy for Now. We're here with another Romancelandia monthly when they happen. I did finally have more than enough stuff for one this month. If you're new here, hi, hello, welcome. I talk about the news in Romancelandia and I've been doing so for a very long time now. And I cover important topics that often get overlooked. I'll have timestamps down below for each specific item because some of these are gonna have triggering content that we're discussing, so I want you to take care of you. So I will give those content notes as we get to these pieces, but a lot has happened in the last month or so, a little over a month in Romancelandia. Yeah, it's just a lot, and sometimes I don't have the energy like many of us. But first things first, I do want to give a quick update on something we discussed in last Romancelandia around Cora Reilly's book with the very questionable representation for a character in a wheelchair being a burden, and a lot of really harmful things were said in this blurb. Cora has apologized. It is not my apology to accept, but I will say she has apologized, and she said she's going to rework the book. We'll see what happens. There's not really a lot to say on this until that reworked book is in our hands and people who are wheelchair users and accessibility aid users can speak on it. So we'll see. I'm happy that she did actually apologize and say I can rework this. Less thrilled at her fan base's reaction to people criticizing the book and the issues within it. Still, that's just gross. That was really disappointing. But that just plays into some more stuff we're about to get into. Booktok, sweet summer child. I adore you. I have so much fun on Booktok. I love getting great book recs there sometimes not so great, but I just need people to understand on Booktok that the nuance for some of these discussions is not available. People on Booktok are very much not everyone on there is a baby romance creator, content maker, but a lot of people are, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. We, as a community, need more and more people to come in and help continue to lift the genre up. But I do often feel like those who are newer to the genre are very defensive of the genre and defensive of requests made and why they're made. So a fellow romance creator called out the fact that Booktok doesn't provide content warnings, which they're not the first person to do this. I know My Name is Marina's often mentions how she thinks it's really crappy to be check content warnings when you're reviewing a book. Just list them in the description, not in the description, in the comments. Put them on the screen. It's not hard. You can do it pretty easily, and I agree with this. I have seen many books wrecked with a really cute scene in a book that has a lot of heavy items in it. Just check trigger warnings or content warnings. And there was an explosion of reaction to this request that honestly was not warranted. A lot of Booktok creators felt like it is not their responsibility to give you content warnings or trigger warnings. That is on the author. And I think a big note in this divide that I noticed is people who read both traditional and indie books and people who only read traditional books or only indie. People who only read indie books seem to think that all authors across the board will give you a content or a trigger warning, and that is not the case. A lot of authors in traditionally published settings don't give content warnings. It is not as accepted, as expected as it is in the indie space. They also, is another thing with authors, is they have the struggle of if they provide content warnings in the description, Amazon pulls the book. That's a whole other situation that is total BS. In my opinion, Amazon has every right to moderate what books are sold on its platform. They're a business corporation, not a government entity that has to allow free speech. That's a whole other bucket of worms we're not even gonna go into. But I will say, I think the expectation that, oh, I'm not responsible for that, that's on the author, came a lot from people who read indie books, and also people who, it is fine if you find content warnings or trigger warnings to be your shopping list, but also you need to understand that for some people that's not a shopping list. Some people that's a avoiding harm list. That's avoiding a bad day list. And that's okay. We are all allowed to like different things. But is the hill you want to die on really being the fact that as a creator sharing books you love, you want to bring harm to someone's day? That is my question. Because my personal mindset, and this is my personal spin on this, is that my goal at the end of the day is that anyone who picks up a book I recommended, even if you didn't like it, it didn't hurt your day. So I try my very best to give content warnings and trigger warnings when I can, or link them to below the book in the description, or put them on the screen. I try my best. I try to put them in my reviews, because usually I would feel like if you're picking up a book I recommended, you're probably following me on Goodreads. You might go mark it as read and see the notes. Like, I just try my best. I am not perfect. No one is perfect at this. And no one is expecting perfection, which I think was what a lot of people thought. Like, people seem to think that, like, well, I don't know all the content warning and trigger warnings to list in a book. Like, how am I supposed to know if you don't like snakes and I don't care about snakes? Why am I gonna know that there's snakes? It's like so diluted, this thinking, when like really what people are asking is like just the bare minimum, you know, like cheating, sexual abuse, domestic violence, rape. Very simple things that you can share that happen in a book that give you no plot summary, no relevance to the plot really, but to let somebody come in prepared. I know for me, a big one I always list is miscarriages, because a lot of people don't list them, and I know people, multiple people in my life who have been through them and don't want to read about them, and it's very triggering for them to read about a miscarriage. It's really simple. So I think the biggest thing here honestly is like, I would love to see more bookish creators be better about sharing these content warnings and trigger warning lists, or content note lists, whatever you want to call it. And then also, you know, just sharing it in those smaller videos like that, because honestly, it takes no time at all. So it's really not a big ask. And I just think like the reaction to this was like so gross. Like, it really turned me off of some creators. And some of them came back and were like, that's not what I meant. Like, I'm sorry, I overreact. And that's fine. Like, we all make mistakes. Again, I think everybody deserves some grace in life. But to like viscerally react to the idea that like people think you should share very important information about a book is wild. Because then we turned around and like, not much later, dark romance is in it. And I love dark romance. Obviously, I like dark romance. It's nothing new that I like dark romance, but dark romance is not like a martyrdom of romance subgenres to die on this hill. And we just saw people dying on the hill of dark romance twice on Booktok in the last month. And one of them does, well, they both kind of relate to content trigger warnings. One of them is about a book that I'm not going to share the title of, and I'm not going to share the author of either. I don't really want to promote this book, but I want to touch on this. This is an underage taboo dark romance with twincest, and the twins coming on to their stepfather about like a couple weeks before they're 18, and the author literally excused it, was like, well, they're 2 weeks away from being 18. And I was like, then why aren't they just 18? Like, it's not a hard ask. Look, I know people like the Balance series from Lucia Franco. The underage thing is a hard line for me. Like, if everyone's underage, I can read it and it's fine. I don't like find it hot necessarily. And usually if I'm reading high school stuff, I'm aging them up to college in my head, because I just, like, it's just not my thing. I am in my 30s. Like, that's just not what I want to read. But I often feel like we excuse certain things in the act of being dark and taboo without ever taking into account the same way we take into account sexual assault survivors and romance, and like giving them these notes, because I don't think we ever think about people who had experienced incest and how damaging it could probably be to see something as like people saying it's hot, like when it was like a really traumatic thing in your life. I think it's a deeper conversation that we're not gonna have here on Romancelandia Monthly, really. If you guys want to live about it, we could probably do that. I don't know. It's just one of those things where like, I also wouldn't want to force anybody out to talk about these experiences, but I think the way in which we talk about incest in romances, like in the dark taboo romances, and the way we will talk about like sexual assault survivors and like lift them up, we don't do the same for those who suffered from other abuses as children or adults or whatever it was. And we need to do better. But yeah, that book was a whole mess. But again, if that's what you want to read it, that's fine. But don't be mad when other people find it questionable, okay? again, you don't know everybody's experience when they're questioning why this thing isn't a book either. Then the other dark romance shitstorm that happened is The Pawn and the Puppet by Brandy Zecker. I'm not sure how to say her last name. This author is a book talker. This author wrote a dark romance, provided a huge list of content note trigger warnings, but missed some key ones, and wrote what turned into a very harmful book. And this is where I'm gonna say, like, again, you are not the author, you don't have to be comprehensive in your content notes, but this came out that this author had been told this was harmful, this was not okay, didn't change it, claimed she couldn't change it in time before the book was published because of being locked in on Amazon, which you do have, like, you are locked in 3 days on an indie book before being published on Amazon, by the way. But still, you could cancel the book still. You can cancel it. Like, you're not actually locked in, like, you could cancel it. Claims she's gonna take the book down and rewrite it. It's still up. This is a dark romance based in an insane asylum or mental health hospital situation. The author has given feedback directly about the content in this, and I do want to give a quick note. We are about to discuss transphobia and just some terribleness, so know that going in here. And like grooming and pedophilia stuff and current like right-wing propaganda, we'll call it. So if that's not for you, timestamp down below to hop to the copycat stuff. So what I want to say is this book features a villain character who turns out to be, and they have transitioned and they sexually assaulted the character as a child, and played this trope, played up the evil trans person trope, which is like very harmful and terrible. Also the idea that all trans people and gay people are groomers or pedophiles, and they are not. This is such a harmful thing that is going around right now, vividly going around right now. Like, this is a big thing. This is bills that are being passed in states relate back to this belief that is not true, y'all. It is not true. And it is so damaging to use these tropes and then get on TikTok or wherever and be like, I'm a liberal, but like, no, that doesn't work. You can't say I'm a liberal, I didn't know. You should be aware enough and be able to see the feedback given from a book. The author claims as beta reader, gave their feedback late. I have no way to verify this. All I have are people who have read the book and investigated the situation that I trust, calling out the issues in this book. And again, I just find it really weird for you to list a huge list of trigger warnings and leave out the transphobia casually. Like, it doesn't matter. And it does. It is so important that we note these things, but also it's important that when we want to write a romance or whatever and portray people that an identity group we do not ourselves represent, that we have the correct sensitivity readers reading that book. And I just, the amount of books I read lately that play into weird right-wing conspiracy theory beliefs is out of control that I've heard about in the dark romance genre, and I don't understand it, and I'm very confused by it, and it doesn't make sense to me. And this thing literally picked up enough news that the Daily Mail covered it, which, if you don't know, the Daily Mail's trash, so like, not great that they covered it, but I just was like, really? Really? The Daily Mail covered this? I just want to note that, like, once again though, like when people want to act like dark romance is like really persecuted and like this thing that like everyone judges, it's books like this, The Pawn and the Puppet, in my opinion, that give dark romance a bad rap because people come out to be like, no, it's fine, it's dark romance. And it's like, no, it's not fine. Just because it's dark romance doesn't mean you have to perpetuate like really terrible stereotypes. Dark romance can have more to it than really harmful stereotypes. And when we let content like this slide and pretend it's not an issue, I feel like it gives us an even worse rap for dark romance readers, because then it's almost like we don't care about anybody else but how dark and taboo a book can get, which is also not great. Because like, again, why do you want to cause harm to people? when it comes to this. So yeah, that's The Pawn and the Puppet. I will link down below to some of the TikToks that discuss the issues with this book, as well as to Rachel Reads with Rachel's video where she read the book. I'm like halfway through it right now. It's filming. It's bananas. She's not necessarily a romance reader, I would call it, but I still think it's interesting to see other people read it and talk about the issues. All right, it is time for our last topic, which is still a deep dive. Like I said, a lot happened. I feel like I have a lot to discuss this go around. So let's talk about the cover artist who accused Berkeley of copying her book cover. So Tessa Bailey had Bookshelf Gremlin create this cover for My Killer Vacation. Very fun cover, I guess. It's not really my taste, but like I don't hate it, it's fine. Well, Chloe Lisa's new book's cover dropped, and the cover artist for My Killer Vacation kind of threw a bit of a tantrum because of the fact that she believes that her cover was stolen to create this cover for Berkeley. First things first, you can't copyright a clinch. That is just a romance pose. I have multiple other books I'm gonna throw up here that are illustrated with the same pose on the cover. I mean, a lot like Adios, one of my favorite books, has a very similar pose on the cover, as does its sequel. You can't copyright it. And then like they tried to say something about illustrated tattoos. It's a mess. And they also tagged Berkeley and Chloe Lise, which I just think is a weird decision. Because you can't invent the clinch in romance. Like it's existed. It's been a thing for all of romance. I have like the vintage painted covers that look like this. You know what I mean? Like it's just a thing. But I do think this brings up an interesting conversation because the My Killer Vacation cover, though not to my taste, also vaguely feels like the hero is a person of color. And this, rightfully so, brought about a really good conversation, I think, about Tessa Bailey's covers. I do love Tessa Bailey, so like don't think I don't like her, because I do like her. But I do think this is an issue I've noticed a couple times with some of her rebranded covers, like special releases, that her covers sometimes in these releases have weirdly ambiguously colored, people of color looking characters on them when the books are Snow White. Again, there's nothing wrong with these books being Snow White necessarily, but it is a fact of Tessa Bailey. It's just kind of something you accept. And if she's not comfortable writing it, that's fine. She doesn't need to be comfortable writing it. Like you don't have to. I think there's a fine line of like not going too far out of your comfort zone almost, but like also it's still not a reflection of the world we live in. It's weird. Again, I like Tessa Bailey books. It's weird, but again, we can criticize things we love. But yeah, I do think like, you know, this is a good criticism also, because like you shouldn't have a cover with a vague person of color on it when your book is like Snow White. Snow White. Just all white characters. It doesn't make sense. So yeah, she's rebranding this cover. My Killer Vacation's getting a new cover. I'm very curious to see it. So we'll see how that goes. But much needed, obviously. And there was another, I don't have the cover, but like there was a cover of Window Shopping that also had like a weirdly person of color looking characters on it. Just strange all around, right? But again, saw the criticism, accepted it, made the change. I think those are the steps you have to take, you know, like that's fair. Like you to just say, I'm gonna fix this. So you fix it. But I don't, you know, if we don't criticize things, we can't fix them. But yeah, that was a interesting and also hilarious day for me, because honestly, it kind of made my whole day reading tweets of people just like going, what? You think you invented this? Because apparently she invented it. The artist has since like went private, I think, on Instagram and deleted everything around My Killer Vacation and Tessa Bailey stuff, I'm pretty sure. And it's probably living in like mortification for a little bit. But again, I also want to preach to the fact that you always need a friend that will tell you no. Listen, we're not bad people for telling you not to do something. But like if you ever need to be, like you need a friend that will check you when you are just kind of like being up here too much, you know, like you need somebody to check you. And it's okay. Like, we all make mistakes. We all need to be checked sometimes. I think that if you don't have a friend that will check you, you need more friends. Because I just feel like all of this could have been avoided if this artist had a friend that checked her and was like, hey, let's not do that. Like, that's not, you can't own that, you know? But she didn't, apparently. Or she didn't listen to him. Because, like, I mean, she may have had a friend check her and she just chose not to listen. That is a thing, right? But yeah, just, you know, make sure you always have a friend that'll check you. Because I think it can avoid some embarrassing situations like this. Hello. Pre-editing me here. I'm back. The Tessa Reilly saga is not over. This is the new book cover. So now we just don't even see the male main character's face, which is fine. I actually really like the text treatment on this, but I've declared this book cursed because somebody pointed out that the tattoo on his arm is part of the Maori tribe style of tattoos, which is a closed practice. Like you as a, like, not, this is not a person of color. This person has no ties to this, no ties to any Pacific Islander identity. Generally speaking, you're just not supposed to get tattoos in this style if you are not part of that culture. Yeah. So that's a new criticism on this cover. Again, I haven't read it, so I don't know. Maybe there's surprise, but most of the people I saw that have read ARC said no, he's pasty white. I mean, not literally pasty, but you know what I'm saying when I say pasty white. I just wanted to film an update about that. We'll see what happens. I do like this cover more. That's it for this month's Romancelandia Monthly. Let me know if you think I missed anything. And let me know your thoughts on the Killer Vacation cover, because I'm curious if everyone, like, secretly hated it and we all just didn't say anything, or what. I personally just was never a fan, so I'm curious. Like, I think if it was like a fantasy romance with like a gown, I would have liked it more, but like for a contemporary, could care less. Yeah, so let me know your opinions on that cover. And if you don't want to do that, you can leave me a green heart emoji, because, I mean, in case you didn't notice, I don't know how you didn't notice, my extremely slime green hair has debuted on my channel officially. I mean, you would have already seen it if you went to the live last night, but you know, we're here, we're green, we're feeling it. So yeah, give me a green heart if you made it this far. And I will have links to all the stuff down below that I can link to. And I will see y'all in just a few days. Bye.
Already packing, come with me. I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be. Life with no distractions. We'll get